besties. Welcome back to a brand new episode of Bon Voyage Besties, your favorite travel podcast with your two favorite Jersey girls. And today we're so excited to welcome Chris to the show. Chris Giuliano is based in Philadelphia, but his love of travel goes way beyond the city. What started as a road trip back in 2016 has since taken him all over the world, from Egypt to China. In August of 2025, he finally checked off China. It had been at the top of his list for years, and while the planning wasn't easy, once he got there, it turned into one of the best travel experiences of his life. Today, we're super excited to chat all about his epic trip and how we can help you plan your own to China. So grab your notepad and get ready for some amazing travel tips. So welcome to the show, Chris. I'm so excited to have you here.
Thank you. Yeah, it's great to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. So for listeners meeting you for the first time, how would you describe your travel style in 3 words?
Definitely fast paced is one of our. I do most of my traveling with my best friend. That's one of our biggest things. We go pretty fast. I would say tight budget. Generally try to keep things at a reasonable price. I know that's now 4 words, and yeah, I kind of like unplanned. You kind of have like a vision of like what cities we want to go to, but we don't do a ton of planning for actual itineraries for a day or whatever. It's just we kind of figure things out as we go and just have a couple basic goals in mind and try to hit those. So
Really like that. It's something we talk a lot about on the show, about leaving some space if there is an itinerary for the magic of travel to happen. And that's something I know I personally need to work on. I, in the past, have done full blown spreadsheets for my travel and just leave no time whatsoever. So I could definitely learn from you with that. So to take like our listeners back a little bit, your love of travel really started with this road trip back in 2016. Could you tell us a bit about that before we discuss your trip to China?
did this road trip back in 2016 with, again, my best friend. It was my best friend like from childhood. It was like right after we had both graduated from college. He went to the University of Pittsburgh. I went to NYU, but he was switching to do his PhD down at U Texas at Austin. So he had to go down to Texas, obviously from Pittsburgh. We had both always wanted to do a road trip. Like we both me especially, had like grown up reading a lot of like Jack Kerouac and stuff like that. I was obsessed with him in high school. So I always had this like romantic idea of like going on the road in America. And then, so we went to, we started out in Philly because we're both from the Philly area. Then we went to Pittsburgh. We went to Cincinnati, Louisville, Memphis, or I guess Nashville, Memphis, a brief stop in what was the town? Oxford, Mississippi, down to New Orleans, and then across to Houston, and then to Austin. And I stayed there for like a week after we got there. But yeah, it was a great, fun road trip, and we just like stayed in motels and would get like a 6-pack of beer and chill in a motel, and it was just, I don't know, just classic, college kid stuff, but it was a great time and really like sparked my love for just like being out there. I don't know, seeing what's out there in the world.
Yeah, absolutely. And as a side note, I've always wanted to go to Oxford, Mississippi. It's one of those destinations I don't hear discussed all that much, but I'm super intrigued by it. So how was that?
It was cool. I mean, we were there for like an hour and a half. We basically just stopped to get lunch. But it seemed like an interesting little, like, academic city, kind of like a little college town. Some cool architecture, and like a lot of nice like bookstores and things like that, which you would expect from a college town. But yeah, I would love to go back one day if I had opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. I love a good college town. There's just so much to see and do. And I also adore the little bookstores. I could spend all of my paycheck in a bookstore, but
Sure.
as you know.
Yeah.
But a road trip is a really good way to kick off that love of travel. Rosa and I talk about it all the time, that you don't necessarily need to travel overseas, abroad, to get that travel experience. But this episode is about China, and I'm super excited to learn more. Another one of my good friends did a trip to China back in September, and she's going again in April. So she
Awesome.
absolutely loves it. So do you remember the moment when you first thought that you needed to go to China? Was it a destination that had been calling you for a while?
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm going to take that to mean mainland China.
Mm-hmm.
So we went to Hong Kong in 2018, I guess. And like we did another road trip after that first one, kind of had like road tripped ourselves out, and we were like, all right, we got to figure out something else. Ended up doing a trip to Hong Kong and Korea, and when we were in Hong Kong, we spent a lot of time on the Kowloon side of the city. There's like two sides of Hong Kong. There's Kowloon and then Hong Kong Island. Kowloon is the section that's like attached to the mainland. So we spent a lot of time there, and a lot of the neighborhoods in Kowloon are more, more like Chinese people live there, whereas Hong Kong Island can be more expats and, people from different countries, whatever. So we spent a lot of time in this one neighborhood in particular called Sham Shui Po, which was like just very densely populated, not a very wealthy part of the city. A lot of like recent mainland immigrants or migrants had settled there. And it was just this like chaotic place that just had so much going on in the street. So it was like this really, really cool place. And we ended up in this like food market, which was like 4 stories. And it was like the ground floor was fish, then it was like vegetables, then live poultry, and then on the top floor was like a prepared food market. And I just remember being in the live poultry section, and there was this guy holding like 5 chickens, like by the talons in one hand, and he had like a meat cleaver in the other hand, and just like a cigarette dangling from his mouth,
That's
wearing
awesome.
like just like the dirtiest, bloodiest apron you've ever seen. And I was just like, this is wild, and like mainland China must just be a whole nother level of this kind of stuff. So that was what really like made me at least really want to go see China. And I think that China is not as prevalent anymore. Mm-hmm. It's kind of, you have to go a bit off the beaten path to find that kind of stuff. I think it's, it's gotten a lot wealthier in the last 10 years, and a lot of things have changed, and a lot of those markets are not quite as like hiding in plain sight as they used to be. But we definitely still saw some stuff like that. So there's a lot of that kind of flavor still out there for sure.
That's amazing. I can see that visual clearly in my head, and I want to go now. I want to do that. Yeah. Like, what is it? A 15-hour flight, probably from Newark to Hong Kong.
Yeah, it might be a little bit shorter than that, honestly. It wasn't that bad. I flew direct from Newark, so
yeah, because I think like United still goes direct. I'm not 100% sure, so listeners, double check that. But I know you can go direct.
So yeah. So
awesome. So you heard it here. If you're in the New Jersey area, you can fly direct to Hong Kong and see it for yourself. So I know that China, it's kind of a challenging destination to plan an itinerary for. Was there a trip before China other than Hong Kong that really boosted your confidence as a traveler to prepare this trip?
Yeah. I think going to Egypt was a pretty big one. That was the first trip that I had really gotten like a visa for. Their visa process was a good bit easier than China's. But on that trip, we had also gone to Turkey and Italy. So it was kind of like, we went Turkey, then Egypt. But yeah, that was the first trip I had ever really applied for a visa on. The first like developing country that I had ever been to, which is kind of like a different style of travel than like a wealthy developed country. So just in terms of like infrastructure and getting around and navigating food safety and all that kind of stuff. So definitely like, was a confidence builder. We were there for like 4 days or 5 days or something. But yeah.
I noticed that you mentioned visas because I know that's like a big hurdle, especially for Americans wanting to travel to China. What was the process like in obtaining the visa? Just because I know that tends to overwhelm a lot of people, just the paperwork involved and possibly visiting the embassy and whatnot. So how did you make that happen?
Yeah. It was definitely a bit intimidating. It's probably like one of the harder visas, I think, to figure out. Basically, you have to submit an application to the embassy, but the embassy is only open. There's only like 3 of them in the US. There's one in New York, DC, and LA. So you have to bring it to the embassy in person. You cannot mail it or whatever. So what we ended up doing, even though I'm only like, an hour and a half away from New York, of course the embassy is only open Monday to Friday, 9 to 5. So it's just like impossible to really do it without taking time off from work. So I found a travel agency in Philly. And there's one right in Chinatown that does this kind of stuff a lot. And they charged basically the price of the visa was their fee. I paid like the visa price, which was $150, and then they charged another $150. Your mileage may vary. I don't know. Mm-hmm. Everybody can charge a different thing for it. But yeah, they basically had somebody run it up to the embassy, drop it off, and go back to pick it up because you have to go twice. You have to pick it up in person. They will not mail it back. So, but if you are approved for the 10-year, the good thing is that you don't have to do it again for the next 10 years. But, That's what I ended up getting. So I think it was worth the 150, especially if I go back even once. It kind of takes care of itself. So
Yeah, absolutely. And that's really cool. I didn't realize that the visa, at least the one you got, was good for up to 10 years because you're right. If you're planning to visit multiple times, the visa does in fact pay for itself. And I also liked what you said about a travel agency because that's not something I would necessarily think of right away. Because with me, like I'm close to New York City right away, I think, oh, I have to take time off of work. I have to go to the consulate in New York, then go back again. So it's good that a travel agency can be an option for people.
yeah, yeah, definitely. And even people, my friend who lives in San Diego, he did a travel agency for the LA embassy. It's just like, it's a lot of work to go there, especially, if you don't live in the city, it's not really an option to go in person. So, yeah,
Yeah, and I know with some people maybe limited with their PTO and other things where if it's a limited schedule like that, it could be hard. So we
for sure.
always say on the show, like sometimes the money is just worth spending, even if it's an additional fee or whatnot, especially for a destination like China that requires all this planning. You're better off spending the extra money than say getting denied for a visa or not being able to get to the consulate before your trip. Like you just want to account for all those things.
Right. And yeah, that's the other thing too. Like they helped me fill out the forms that I needed. It wasn't anything like super difficult, the forms, but just like making sure you had all the right things filled out and whatever is always just helpful to have somebody who's gone through it before walk you through it. So
Yeah, absolutely. So, you talked about how this is one of the hardest trips you've ever planned. So, aside from the visa aspect, were there any other things that made it particularly challenging for you?
yeah, I think like finding the flights initially was kind of difficult. There's not a lot of connection between the US and mainland China. There's obviously a lot of connections between the US and Taiwan or Hong Kong. And that's kind of what we ended up doing in the end because, we really wanted to see like Sichuan province. That was the most important area for us to see. So it was, but it's like really difficult and expensive to get any sort of flight that's reasonably direct to Sichuan. So what we ended up doing was flying to basically to Hong Kong and then just taking a train up. And that ended up being the most efficient way of doing it. But yeah, the flights can be a bit hard to find and expensive if you're really trying to go like to an area that is not like Beijing or Shanghai or, whatever, or Hong Kong or something.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense. I could see where those flights would be a challenge for sure. And before going to mainland China, I know that you had been to Hong Kong previously. Were there any misconceptions that you had before traveling there?
I don't know about misconceptions. I guess I felt that it would really feel a bit more like Hong Kong, which feels a bit more like a city that developed like I don't know, you can kind of feel that Hong Kong is like an 80s, 90s city. That was its heyday. But China is very like there are a lot of parts of it that are just thoroughly, thoroughly modern. Like the most modern place I've really ever seen. Not all of it, obviously. There are still some pretty rural and underdeveloped parts and smaller cities that don't get as much investment and things like that. But like in the big cities, it's quite modern. So I think I was not expecting it to be that level. That's probably like the main thing I would say. Yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree. So I'll like scroll on Instagram when I should be doing lesson plans. And sometimes these videos from China will pop up of different cities. And it looks like the coolest, most futuristic steampunk kind of movie vibe. And it's just really amazing to see with all like the lights and the billboards and the architecture. And it just has to be even more amazing to see it in person. Was there any like particular moment that made your jaw drop?
Yeah. I mean, it was just like seeing Chongqing for the first time, I think was pretty wild. That's like the city that everybody that's like really making the rounds on social media right now.
Yes. Oh, yes.
Yeah, because it's just like hard not to like just be blown away by it. It's such a like unbelievable looking place in like the truest sense. Like you just really can't believe that it actually exists on Earth. And yeah, I mean when we came around this like corner, like we were coming from the train station and going to our hotel, which was like sort of in like you know downtown, I guess you could call it, like the most central area of Chongqing. And we just came around this corner and it was just like a sea of skyscrapers that were like all lit up and all sorts of like the entire facade of the building is lit up or has some color scheme going on it. And it's just like the most insane thing you could imagine. Like it's almost how I felt like people from like Europe probably felt coming to New York in like the early 1900s, just like never having seen a tall city before. And then like all of a sudden you're like pulling into New York Harbor and you're looking at like the Empire State Building and you're like, my God, this is the new world, you know? So that's kind of like how it felt. It was like, it was almost like seeing the new world. But yeah, it was truly like a mind blowing city.
Yeah, I can't even imagine because that's the one that I see making the rounds on social media too all the time. And like I said, just looking at the little video clips of it is mind blowing. I can't imagine in person. It must be overwhelming, but in a really good way.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like visually overwhelming, but weirdly enough, it's a city that's like very. I mean, this is just kind of like the thing that you find in like all of China. It's very easy to navigate. Nothing feels very overwhelming when you're there. There were a few moments when it was like a bit much, especially when we hit like super touristy areas. But aside from that, like daily life is just very kind of like easy, and it's not hard to navigate stuff, and a lot of things are like very technologically integrated. So while it looks overstimulating and overwhelming, it's like a pretty easy place to actually exist in, which is really cool.
That's really awesome. So, with the navigation, were there any particular apps or other tools that you use to navigate around the city?
Yeah, definitely. So the two main apps are Weixin or Alipay. So Weixin is more of like for payments, and like it has WeChat. WeChat is a part of that app. But they're basically these like super apps. In the West, our apps are mostly like decentralized. Every company has their own app, and if say you want to like change your flight on your United trip, you have to go into the United app, and you want to go to Instagram, you have to go to the Instagram app, and you want to, I don't know, whatever, pick a thing. You want to get on the subway and you're looking to see when the next train is coming. You have to go to like the transit agency's app. But in China, there's like these couple of super apps which just encapsulate like so many different aspects of daily life all within one app. So you don't have to go and like, they take a while to figure out and like learn how to navigate them and everything that it can be used for. But they make it really easy to get around. So once we figured out Alipay in particular, which has the Didi app, which is like Chinese Uber, it also has like you can pay for like subways and buses through the app and things like that. And then we downloaded a map, which is the best like navigational map, like probably the closest parallel to Google Maps, because Google Maps obviously doesn't work there. Once we got all that under our belt, it made navigating a lot easier. I don't know how we would have done it without a map. That was a lifesaver for sure.
I love the whole idea of like these super apps where you're not toggling back and forth between a million different things. Cause I know that can sometimes be a little annoying if you say have like an app for this bus. Oh, this different bus has an app. It's nice that it's all in one place.
Right.
Because it really does make it so much easier, especially when there's so many new things to see and do. You don't want to be getting caught up with like apps. So I know one of the reasons to visit Chongqing is because of the food. So tell us about the food. I want to hear all about it. It's been like on my mind all week with this cold weather we've been having. I could go for some hot pot like immediately.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, Sichuan province is known for like, it's like very spicy food. So when we were in Sichuan, we definitely had a lot. We had a lot of hot pot. We had hot pot at like the really famous place in Chongqing, which was like a bunker during World War II, which has been converted into like this giant hot pot restaurant that like winds under the city in this bunker. So that was really cool. We got really good hot pot in Chengdu as well. I guess I'm like used to good hot pot enough that it wasn't like too mind blowing, because like New York has like, if you ever go to like Flushing in New York, there's like 90 million places for hot pot up there that are really good. So I've like, I don't know, I've had a lot of it. Trying to think what else we had. We had a lot of barbecue. That was something that I was surprised about, like really pleasantly surprised about, where like Chinese barbecue is all these kind of little skewers. Sometimes they're like chicken, lamb. Their chicken wings are like really, really good. Or they'll do like these little small like river fish and stuff like that. And then you just like grill them, and usually seasoned with some kind of like red pepper, white pepper, cumin, kind of like a Chinese five spice with a little bit of red pepper kind of thing. But yeah, that the barbecue was really, really good. I had that a lot. So
That sounds delicious. That
Yeah.
sounds delicious. And even though sometimes I get a little nervous with spicy food, I it just all sounds so good to me. I think I would just eat everything that came my way.
Yeah.
I think I'm just like craving hot food right now because it's been like so cold. But was
Right.
there any like one particular meal that just like stood out to you?
I don't know. It's hard to say. I mean, we're there for 3 weeks, so I think when you're there for such a long time, it's like, and in a country where like the caliber of food is so high, like we just like didn't have a bad meal. So yeah, I don't know if I had one particular favorite. Like if I had to choose like one favorite thing that we ate, like this might sound really lame, but it was the chicken wings. There was like something about them that was just like, I don't know if it's a different breed of chicken or if they're just like prepared differently, but they were like our one friend that went with us, his friend growing up had spent some time in China and was like, if you go to China, just like if you ever see chicken wings on a menu, get them because they're just really good. I don't know why, but they are. So we just called that rule number one. And we just were like every time we sat down and we saw chicken wings on a menu, we're like, rule number one, we gotta get them. So we had a lot of chicken wings, but they were they were just like really good. I don't know. That might sound like the lamest answer ever, but it was just like I was hard to beat them.
No, it doesn't sound lame at all. It reminds me of when my friend Amy and I went to Barcelona, and every time we went to a restaurant, we had to get patatas bravas. Like, no matter what, it was just like calories don't count for patatas bravas. We're getting them. And it was delicious every single time. So you got to do what you got to do. I feel like I need to book like a flight, even if it's super expensive with a million connections, just to get chicken wings now. Leave tonight, come back on Monday. I can make it happen. But 3 weeks is a really good amount of time, especially with a trip that requires so much planning, visas, flight connections. So, could you walk us through your itinerary? Where did you go with those 3 weeks?
Yeah, so initially, I said earlier that we flew into Hong Kong. We actually flew into Taiwan first because we were planning on going, like, spending a few days there first and then going to Hong Kong. But our friends got in a bit earlier than expected. So we kind of like, my friend and I, who were on the same flight, jumped on a different flight, went straight to Hong Kong. So we were in Hong Kong for a day and a half. And then we took a train from there up to Yangshuo, which is on the Li River. And it's a pretty popular area. A lot of like Chinese tourists go there. It's like this like karst mountain landscape, so these like really dramatic rock formations that just jut up like 2,000 feet in the air or whatever. It's really famous because it's on the back of the Chinese, like the 20 yuan bill, which I think I might have it here. It's like
Let's say it.
behind my computer. I don't know if I have the 20. I have my extra yuan here. Let me see if I have it. No, I got the one.
There
I
it is. Oh,
got
that's so cool.
I got the 5. These are all the fronts. They have like a different,
Well, that's
landscape on the backs.
awesome. The scenery even looks beautiful on the money. I can't imagine what it looks like in real life if it looks great on currency.
Right. So yeah, so everybody goes there and they're like taking pictures with, of like the spot where that's on like the 20 yuan note. And yeah, it's,
Well, that's
just
funny.
a fun place to visit. So yeah, we stayed there for a couple of days. It was just like brutally humid. We were there in the middle of August and it was just like the most hot, humid weather I've been in since like India, probably. And then we went from there up to our next city was Luzhou, which is a small city in Sichuan, which is about an hour or so away from Chongqing, I think. And then the reason for stopping there was because there's this like soy sauce factory that we really wanted to see. And it was like, it's one of the only places that's left that still makes soy sauce the old fashioned way. So they literally
Cool.
just like leave it sitting out in these like big earthenware jars out in the sun. So it was really cool to see. And then after that, we went to Chongqing. We were there for about 3 or 4 days. Then we went to Chengdu, same amount of time, about 3 or 4 days. And then we had 5 people with us. So 3 of them split off and basically went straight to Beijing and then went home because they didn't have as much vacation time. And then my best friend and I stayed and we went to a smaller city called Hanzhong, which was just kind of like a random city on the way between Chengdu and Xi'an, which was our next city. So if if you're not familiar with the geography of China, we're basically traveling like in a C shape, like from Hong Kong like to the west and then starting to go north. So then we went up to Xi'an, which is like in Shanxi province, which is like the old gateway to the Silk Road, famous for like its Muslim quarter where they have a lot of different food and stuff like that, and a couple of different ethnic groups live there. And then from there we went straight from Xi'an to Beijing, which was a really long like overnight train ride. So that like completed our big C around the mainland. And then we flew to Taiwan, spent 3 days there, and then flew home. So
That's really awesome. What was it like taking the overnight train? I always romanticize them in my head, but I've never been on one.
yeah, I'm not gonna lie. Like I had romanticized it myself. I was like pretty excited for it, and then we got in there, and I was like, "This is tough." You know, like they just kind of like you get like a room or like a little like roomette, you know, as Amtrak would call it, but you're with other people. So we got like a four. I guess you can get a private one, but they're probably a lot more expensive. So we got the one that was like I don't know. I think our ticket was like $80. Like it was, you know, reasonable
Yeah.
but not super cheap or not super expensive. And yeah, we were just like with a Chinese family. So like three people, like you know, husband and wife with their son underneath of us, and then we both got the top bunks. And yeah, I mean, you know, you're just on a train with like a Chinese family, you know, it's just they're snoring and like you know if you got to go to the bathroom like you have to be like quiet, you don't want to wake the kid up, and it's stuff like that, you know. But and the whole time like the train's just like rocking, and you know when you can feel it switching the tracks all throughout the night and stuff like that, which it was cool. I definitely am like glad I did it, but I'm not sure that I'm like super eager to do it again, you know.
Always the case with travel. Like there's stuff I do and I look back and I'm like, I'm happy I did it. It's really awesome that I had that experience. Would I do it again? I don't know if I would do it
Yeah,
again. But yeah,
like
this is
some things you just got to do them once at least, you know.
absolutely, absolutely. This actually sounds like fun. It reminds me of a hostel, but a hostel on wheels where you're like sharing like the dorm room and you have to like dodge snoring, be quiet, not like rustle your bag too much. So it's a hostel on wheels. So for anyone who's ever backpacked in a hostel, just think of it as a hostel on wheels and that you probably won't sleep, but that's okay. You could always sleep when you get home, is how I feel about that.
Yeah, exactly.
So I know we talked about planes, we talked about visas. How far would you say you should book tickets in advance to attractions, booking hotels, train tickets, like everything once you're actually on the ground in mainland China?
Depends. I mean, I think most things like, you know, attractions and things like that, you can go like a week out. It's not going to be that crazy. The only thing you have to watch out for is if you're like traveling during a holiday, like a Chinese holiday. We were not there during a Chinese holiday, but from what I have heard, it is like impossible to travel because the average Chinese person just doesn't get a ton of time off. So when they do get like a national holiday, it's like off to the races, and like every train is sold out. Attractions are just like absolutely mobbed. So you know you have to pay attention if you're going to be there for a holiday, and basically just like stay put on the holiday if at all possible. But yeah, I mean aside from that, like most of our trains we booked like a week in advance, I think maybe 2 weeks at the most. So like it's yeah there's just so many of them and they're so frequent that it's really like not that difficult to get a ticket. And like the hotels were cheap, like even when we didn't like book them super far in advance, they were still readily available, and we could find a place that was like $50 a night US. So I wouldn't say there's like an excessive amount of like pre-planning that you really need to do.
That's really nice. It kind of reminds me of Japan a little bit in the sense that with the trains, you didn't need to really book them ahead of time unless it was a big holiday like Golden Week, where everybody is just like traveling around the country. So it's really important to like take note of those national holidays because they may not necessarily be what an American would think of right off the bat. Because I have heard that those particular days, everybody's traveling and there's just like no hope of getting a train. The lesson here is do your research.
Do your research, always do your research, but yeah, you should be fine for the most part.
Yeah, absolutely. So, for someone who's say planning a trip to China, is there anything that you were stressed about or that you think other people would stress about that they really don't necessarily have to?
um I don't know. I don't know what people would ordinarily stress about.
Mhm.
I guess maybe like the thing that like I knew people like who you know in my life were stressed out about like on my behalf was like geopolitical risk. I was like I think I'll be fine. That's all I can really say there.
YOLO.
Yeah, you know, I mean, what am I gonna do? Like wait for something really bad to happen and then like be like I can't go now, you know? I mean, you just gotta take the risk. It's a risk you kind of always take with any country that you go to, you know, technically. I mean, look at Ukraine, right? I mean, it's anything can happen anywhere. You know, a country that you otherwise thought was perfectly safe could change overnight. So,
Yeah, absolutely. Rosa and I talk about this a lot in the show too. Like, do your research, read blogs, read travel guides, talk to people who've been. But like things can happen at home too. I mean, New Jersey, there's
Yeah,
all
right.
sorts of things that go on. I feel like my
Sure.
risk of getting hit as a pedestrian walking around New Jersey is way higher than something massive happening to me on my travels, but that's just me.
No, I think that's like legitimately right. Like statistically, I would imagine, you know.
Yeah, 1,000,000%. I totally agree. So, how about language barriers? Because I know that's something that can stress people out. I was a little worried about this going to Japan. Again, different country, but I had heard that English wasn't so widely spoken, that it was a little difficult to navigate. But it turned out to be not all that big of a deal. I did fine. How was that in mainland China?
So I would say China was the like least English speaking place I've ever been, and I've been to like a fair amount of countries that don't speak a ton of English, but like yeah, it was there were not many people that spoke English. So, but one of the things that's really great about those like super apps, Alipay in particular, is it has like a really good speech to text translation app within it. So we would use that a lot. Like for instance, we were buying a lot of tea. I like love tea, so we went to these like wholesale tea markets and we're sitting down with people and like just giving them our phone basically, and they would like talk into it and it would tell them, it would translate automatically. So but with technology today, it's like, is it ever really that hard with of a language barrier? But it was fun. I mean, we definitely had like some silly moments where like things got like way mistranslated, and we were all just like, "What is this person trying to tell us right now?" Like, so there were a few times like that, but it was yeah. I mean, I think like overall it was like easy enough. And I had learned like a few like keywords of Mandarin, like just like some basic things like count to 10, how to say water, I don't know, where's the bathroom, things like that. How much does this cost? So that like helped a lot, and just like gave us like a little bit of a reference point. I wasn't like confident enough to really use it in any serious way, but it was at least something that I could be like, okay, I hear like they're saying like, go to platform 2 for this train. So it was, yeah.
Yeah, and it's always like respectful just to like learn a couple of words, even if you're not super confident. I know whenever I go to a new destination, I learn one or two words and then I like start stumbling in English, but I feel like people always appreciate it. But going back to the funny moments, is there any one moment that stood out in particular where something was mistranslated or kind of awkward? Because those are the best travel stories. They're always really funny.
Yeah, when we were in Yangsuo, which was that like river city with like the mountain formations like along the river, they're like famous for this like fish stew dish. So we went to this restaurant and we're just like having a lot of trouble ordering. Like it was just like a complicated order for whatever reason, and we're like showing the guy like our phones. We're like, here, like this is what we. He's just like, I don't know. And then he like says something into it and he like shows it back to my friend, and it just says like, I'm in the woods, 2 fish, 1 liang. And he was just like, what could this possibly mean? And his
What?
and his wife is like, say like, I think he's trying to ask you like where we're from, because he's like saying other stuff. And she's like, I think he's trying to ask you like where we're from, like say something. He's like, USA. And he's just like looking around and like looking at the other waiter. He's like, what? And we found out later that like a liang is a unit of measurement. So I
Okay.
think he was trying to say like, you ordered 2 fish that weighs like 1 liang. That's like a ton of food. You don't need that much.
Okay.
And like this guy was probably like, I'm like trying to tell them, like saying to his like other waiter, because there are like 2 of them, just like, I don't know, trying to figure this out from all angles.
God, these poor guys. They're just like, I just want to take your order.
Yeah. And he's like, dude, I'm just trying to ask them. I'm just trying to tell them that they're ordering like way too much food. And he like just told me USA, like no idea what's going on. So that was a fun
Ordering
one.
food.
Right. He was like, maybe Americans just eat way more than us. I don't know.
We all
But
eat a lot. Oh my gosh, that is like
it was,
so funny.
yeah, it was funny. There are a couple other mistranslations. There was one where we were like in a hotel and this person was trying to tell us how to get to I don't know, something we were doing tomorrow, and she was referring to my friend's wife, and she said you and your mother, which was really funny.
I would be so
I think she
embarrassed.
was. I don't know, or maybe it was such translation of something else. I'm not sure, but it was funny. But there were a lot of good ones.
That's amazing. And what's like good is that you can laugh about them. I think people get like so in their own head that they're going to be embarrassed or that they're really going to like mess up and offend someone. But I always find that when you have these like moments where stuff's being translated incorrectly, it just turns out to be funny. Like
Yeah.
everybody's laughing about it.
Yeah. It's always just like a good laugh. So, and they become, good jokes for the rest of the trip. I mean, we just like the entire rest of the trip, we were just like repeating like over and over, like two fish, one liang, I'm in the woods. What?
In the woods. It's the in the woods that's really funny because
Yeah.
that would
Yeah.
trip me up too. I'd be like, what?
Yeah. Like he was obviously trying to say I'm confused, but we're, just I'm in the woods is just a way funnier way to phrase that.
Start saying that whenever I get lost on my travels. I'm in the woods and see if
Seriously.
anyone can help.
Yeah. Coin the phrase. Take it. It's yours.
We'll make merch about it. We'll make merch about it.
There you go.
But in that itinerary, it sounds like you went to so many amazing places. You have this visa, it's good for 10 years. Is there one particular spot where you would just like go back in a heartbeat?
Yeah, I like weirdly enough, my favorite place in the entire trip was Luzhou, which was the smaller city between Yangshuo and Chongqing. I really liked it there. I don't know if it's like the a type of place I like need to go back in a heartbeat, I guess. Like there's not a whole lot to do there, but it was just like a very interesting city. Like it was kind of like the China I was like really hoping to see, which was, this kind of like place that's caught between being a developing world country and just being like a first world nation. Like it's clearly in transition, and you'll have these like neighborhoods that haven't completely changed yet, and then there'll just be like this enormous piece of like the most modern infrastructure ever. It's usually just like a massive bridge, and Luzhou was just like nothing but just like unnecessarily enormous bridges over like old neighborhoods, which was kind of cool. And that was where the soy sauce factory was that we really liked. And there was this like really nice temple that we went to that overlooked the whole city and had these like giant golden dragon statues. So I really liked it there. And honestly had like the best meal of the trip there too. Actually, yeah. So I guess there was a best meal, but it was a barbecue meal in Luzhou for me.
What did you order?
Chicken wings, of course.
Of course. We need the chicken wings with every meal.
Because you have to, yeah. And then like just a bunch of like I don't know skewers of meat, stuff like that, and vegetables. But they had like an open like charcoal fire in the middle of the table, and it was just like a silly day. Like we had been like drinking a lot and it just kept getting stopped by groups of people because it's just like kind of like a random city. It's like like 1 million people, so it's not huge, and like not a lot of tourists really go there. So people just kept being like doing like double takes when they'd see like a group of like 5 white kids go by. They'd just be like,
Did you get lost?
Yeah, they're like, are you in the woods? And then they pull us over, and they like kept wanting to take pictures and stuff. So we just like we called it the campaign stop because we just felt like we were just shaking so many hands and kissing babies and whatnot and taking pictures.
So fun. Yeah, I've heard that about the pictures and being stopped for them. How many times did it happen in that city?
A lot in that city for sure. It was that, but that was like the most. Everywhere else, it was pretty like chill. But I think like, yeah, we were just so far off the beaten path. Like we might have legitimately been the only Americans there like for an entire month. I don't know. It just seemed like a place that like nobody would have any reason to go to. So we didn't see any other foreigners as far as I could tell. But yeah, it was a funny stop.
It's amazing. I always find they're the best stops too, just like being the only tourist, because it's true, you're a novelty and it's just a really interesting time.
Yeah. And like everywhere else we went, they're mostly big cities, so like people are used to seeing whatever tourists around, even though like China's not super touristed by Western tourists. Like there were enough in Chongqing, there were definitely plenty in Beijing, and like they knew what a white person looked like basically. Whereas like Luzhou, I was like legitimately like it's probably been a while since a group of 5 white kids
you
just walked down the street.
You guys are the most popular in town.
Yeah. So it was fun, but.
That sounds really, really fun. And again, it sounds like a great itinerary. I want to go to all of these places, but if you were to do the trip again, or if you had even more time, let's say you had like 5 weeks instead of 3, is there anywhere that you would have added? Anything you would have changed?
Yeah. As far as adding, there were a couple things that we really wanted to do that we didn't get the opportunity to. There's some areas of like Western Sichuan that look really cool, like closer to the Tibetan plateau that you don't need like a special Tibet visa to see. So we cut those out for time's sake, but I would definitely go back and do that. And then I think like the other region that we really left off besides like the far northwest is really like the central area. So we cut like a big like, you know, half circle around the country basically, but we left that entire middle unexplored. So, that's where like a lot of the biggest cities are and where like the bulk of the population of China really lives. So yeah, it'd be cool to see like Wuhan or like parts of like Fuzhou or something. That those areas look cool. I don't know much about them, but I'm sure there's enough going on there that would be interesting to see.
Yeah, that's really awesome. It's such a gigantic country. I feel like it's a place that you could go to 50 times and still not see everything.
Right. Which is why I'm glad I got the 10-year visa because we're definitely planning on going back. So, and I guess another place that I didn't mention is Harbin, which is in like the northeast. So that's another one that kind of makes the rounds on social media. But it's like known for being a winter city, kind of like Sapporo in Japan, just like massive ice festival in the winter and just like super cold. And but yeah, looks really cool. I've always wanted to go there. So
That would be really cool, an ice festival. That would be awesome. It would make the cold worthwhile instead of this cold we've just been having here on the
right.
East Coast where it's just kind of miserable. There's no ice festival going on. So let's say there's somebody they're interested in traveling to China, but they're sort of hesitant on the fence about it, unsure. What kind of advice would you give them to encourage them to make the leap?
Um, don't be afraid, just go for it. You're going to have a great time. It's like a very special part of the world. And I mean all of East Asia is I love it, over there, but like China in particular is just like its own thing entirely and it's it's amazing. You just got to yeah, I don't know, you just got to go for it. I
Yeah.
don't know. I feel like the hesitancy is usually just people being like, well, it's a big trip and, you got to go for a long time to make it worthwhile. You have to get like it's just complicated is like the main hang up and a bit expensive. And I think the expense is like it is expensive, the flights and stuff like that, but like once you're there, you're not spending very much money at all. It's relatively it's quite cheap, at least for a westerner. And yeah, it's you're just gonna have like a phenomenal time. It's worth it.
Yeah. Yeah, we say that all the time that with travel, most of it is people like creating scenarios in their own head, like the worst case scenario, and like psyching themselves out and thinking it's going to be too difficult for a variety of reasons. But I know, like, speaking from personal experience, I've never regretted any of the trips I've taken. Like, even if I'm like freaking out the day before and I just like don't want to do it. Like, I remember before going to Japan, I was so nervous about that flight. I called my mom 3 times. My brother called once to check in on me. It was like a whole like dramatic thing. But then once I was there, it was totally worth it. I would fly that flight 10 times in order to go back. It was very, very special and nothing bad happened on the plane ride over. So we always say that to just go for it, to travel, because once you're there, it's totally going to be an amazing experience. And with this trip to China, you guys didn't do a group tour. You planned it entirely on your own and managed to navigate and get around, and it was amazing.
And it's feasible. It's like it's not as hard as you would think. Especially like I think once you figure out how to like get into the Chinese like ecosystem, like you do need to really like understand how the apps work. You do need to understand that like the best way to plan is through trip.com. Like don't try to do anything. It's just like it's the way. You have to figure out your payment apps. So it's intimidating from that respect. And like, I do think like because of that, it's like it's a pretty small group of people that are interested. And then just because of like, the US China tension right now, it's an even smaller group of people than would ordinarily be interested. But like for those that are interested but are just hesitant, like just do your research, figure out the apps, get it all kind of like on your phone beforehand, figure out your SIM card situation, whatever. And yeah, just take the leap because it's expensive, but it'll be worth it.
Yeah, yeah, it definitely sounds amazing and totally worth it. So, what would you say your top 3 tips would be? We talked about the apps and just like kind of having your shit together beforehand because it does require planning. Are there any other tips that you would consider essential?
Yeah, I mean on the apps note, like the biggest one is payments, which I feel like merits its own podcasts sometimes. It was like it was just like really complicated to figure out. Like after COVID, basically they started going cashless, and since there were no tourists for really the period from like 2020 to probably 22 maybe or 23, they didn't really have to deal with the problem of like foreigners trying to pay for things. So you had to have a Chinese bank account for the longest time to use their payment apps. So there was like a brief window of people who maybe went to China between like 23 and 24 who just like got there and were kind of like shit out of luck because they didn't have a Chinese bank account. So you could only use cash. And like now that they're cashless, everybody doesn't carry change. So like you might end up way overpaying for things. And it's also really hard to get cash because, you're just in like a country that's not very connected to the West. So there aren't ATMs that accept Western credit cards everywhere. Like you have to go to a Bank of China. It's like pretty much the only place you can go. So yeah, so it's important. Like now they allow people to use Western credit cards on the apps, but a lot of times your credit card will deny the charge. So, lucky for me, I'm like a classic American. I have 3 credit cards. So
That's
like
me. I have like 4.
yeah. So like maybe for us it's like not as big of a problem. Like when one stopped working or kept getting denied, then I just like switched to another. Like I literally had to end up using my work credit card because I just couldn't like get the other ones. Like I couldn't pay for rides on my other credit cards. Like, my banks just kept like denying the charges. So it's like really, really important to figure that out. And also really, really important to make sure you have at least some cash, because we had a group of 5 people and not one of us had any Chinese yuan until we got to Chongqing, which was like a good 6 days into the trip. So
Dang.
yeah, I mean, we made it work. There was like one close call where we almost couldn't pay for a meal, and then like our one friend like got his to work. But yeah, it's a bit frustrating, I think, when you're there and you're like you can't pay for stuff. So that's the biggest tip.
Yeah, but those are really important because you want to be able to pay for things. So, hey, it's a good excuse to open credit cards. Like, have a Visa, have a MasterCard, have something else.
If you've been looking to open a travel card, then, now's the time to do it, I guess, if you're going to go to China.
Open a travel card, get the sign up bonus, use all of the points for that flight over there because that's going to be your big ticket item, and then just like hope that they work on the ground.
And that's what I actually did. I ended up using my sign up bonus from my from Chase, which was I had opened the card like maybe 3 years ago, but I just kept that like 60,000 point sign up bonus, and it paid for my entire flight there. The round trip flight there and back. It was saved me like, I don't know, $1,200. So
it's totally worth it. It's totally worth it. Those sign up bonuses will go a super long way for sure.
Yeah.
So this has been like absolutely amazing. Like I really want to go to China now. I'm just like thinking about planning a trip and feel like I totally should after talking to you and to my friend. So hopefully one day in the future I can make that happen. So before we close up, we're going to do a quick rapid fire round. Some of these we already answered, so I'm going to tweak the questions a little bit as I go. I'm going to wing it. All right. So favorite Chinese city?
Yeah, Luzhou was my favorite, but like big city, I would probably say, weirdly enough, Chengdu. I really liked Chengdu.
What did you like about Chengdu?
It was just like a very, very enjoyable city to be in. Like it felt like the city I could like see myself living in. Like life there was just very, very seamless, very easy, great subway system, like brand new. Nothing was overcrowded ever. Cool mix of like culture, and whatever, like just fun things to do. That was weirdly enough, we went to like a techno club in Chengdu. That was just like very kind of like Western style. So there's like all sorts of different stuff for different people there. So
that's so fun. Now I want to buy the ticket, not just for the chicken wings, but also for the techno club. I think I'm thinking of the things in my head that I want to experience there. Chicken wings and then techno club.
Yeah.
All right.
The big 2.
Oh yeah. Absolutely. Street food or sit down meals?
Street food for sure.
I could definitely see that. Most Instagrammable moment?
I guess honestly, like the techno club. Weirdly, it was like in like the 15th or 16th floor of this skyscraper. It was like bizarre, but yeah, we just like went up to the top of the skyscraper. All the windows were like graffitied over and stuff, and you're just like looking out over the whole city. That was really cool. And then I would say when we like went down into like the valleys of Chongqing, we're just calling them like the pits. I don't know. They're like these big like valleys that have skyscrapers like built into them and like staggered at all different like levels. And they had these little courtyards, and you just like look up and there'd just be like skyscrapers all around you with like air conditioner rain dropping down. And yeah, we're just like sitting there like at this
So
little
cool.
concrete table, just like drinking ice cold beers. And it was awesome. Yeah.
Oh my God, I want to go. That sounds so fun.
Yeah.
I will make that flight happen just for that. One word to describe China.
Vast.
Yeah.
It is enormous. And I was there for 3 weeks, and I really just don't feel like I saw like any of it, you know. And then we'd go off like the beaten path to like one of these smaller cities, and like Luzhou was a city of 1 million people. Like it was, even though it was like a small city, quote unquote, there's as many people as like Philadelphia, you know. Yeah. It was, yeah, it's, I don't know, vast and unknowable. You will never master it, you know.
No.
There will always be a part of mystery to it, you know, or a part that you haven't seen.
Yeah, that's amazing. Wow. Yeah, vast. Oh my gosh, that's so cool. So before we wrap things up here, do you have any future trips coming up that you would like to share?
I don't have anything big planned. I got like a bachelor party in Montreal in a couple weeks.
Montreal's
But
great.
yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I haven't been in a long time. But yeah, no like major things planned. We were thinking about maybe like going to Malta this summer. My friend who was with me on the China trip, who I've done most of my traveling with, his family's from Malta, so maybe that. But yeah,
I still
we'll see.
haven't been, and it looks absolutely beautiful. I'm going to Italy this summer, and I wish I had
Nice.
time to stop by Malta because, like, I feel like I'm always near there because I go to Italy so much, and it's like Malta's right there. I should really go check it out.
Yeah. I mean, I'm surprised I've never been, because like literally my best friend for like almost my entire life is like has a bunch of family there, you know. But yeah, I don't know.
Yeah,
It's just
maybe
it's one
one
of
day.
those places that's like it's a bit hard to get to, like you said.
It
It's
is.
just like a bit out of the way, so you know, you kind of have to be deliberate about going there. So you know,
Yeah,
but we'll get there one day.
definitely. I think my one coworker went there, and it is true. Like you kind of have to like plan connections and all of that kind of stuff. But
Yeah,
one day, I think between the two of us, we'll hit every country in the
maybe.
globe. So
Yeah, that's a good goal.
yeah. So for our listeners, is there any particular place where they can like find you? Any social handles or websites that you would like to share?
I do have a website. It's just my name, chrisgiuliano.com. I periodically post like little blurbs and stuff like that on the updates section. Sometimes they include travel photos. But yeah, I don't know. I haven't been very good with updating my social media stuff recently, so I wouldn't say there's any one particular place that, you know,
Yeah.
sees
I
most of the
haven't
love.
I haven't either, actually. I feel like this month, like the month that never ends, January, I just have not been caring much about social, but I think
Yeah.
it's the winter blues. Maybe
Yeah.
I'll feel differently when I get back from London.
And sometimes you
see.
got to take a break, you know. It's just like it's a crazy world, you know.
Yeah.
If you get too deep into that, then you know, into
Yeah.
social media, you kind of go down a rabbit hole of thinking that that's the world, and it isn't, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. Listeners, this is your sign to go outside or go like to a techno club over in
Go touch
Chengdu.
grass, right?
Go
That's what
touch
they say.
grass. Yeah. Go
Yeah.
touch grass. Go to a
Yeah.
techno club and have some chicken wings.
Yeah. Hey, that's my dream techno club. Any techno club that serves chicken wings, I'm there. You'll
Well, I'm there
find
too.
me back in the corner. Yeah.
You'll be opening one
At
in
a
the
table.
future.
Yeah, maybe, yeah. This is the start of a great idea.
Of a great idea. Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
you're gonna be rich from that. Well, thank you so much for being on the show. We really appreciate it, and we were super excited to learn about China. I know that I want to go there. So huge thanks to Chris to sharing all his stories and tips from his incredible trip to China. His adventures remind us that with a little planning, the world is totally within reach. And listeners, if you want to go to China, just do it. I mean, we always say it on the show, just do it. Think about the what ifs and the anxiety later. It probably won't happen anyway. So if you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and leave us a review. It really helps us out. And of course, DM us if you have questions about planning your own trip. We might feature them in a future episode. And until then, bon voyage, besties. Take care and just book the trip. The money will come back. It's fine. It's fine.
Hopefully.
Hopefully. Open 3 credit cards if you're going to China. You have an
Yeah.
excuse now.
Yeah, there you go.
Just do it.